3, 2, 1.
Not here. I'm telling you. I took him down to the drug tank about 12 hours ago. Ain't no sense.
Once you've made something disappear, there will always be brighter people who don't have to find what disappeared, they just have to connect you to it. Such was my plight. At the moment, short of panic, my mother's second husband told me, if a person doesn't have resources, they can't negotiate. Then he asked if I had resources. I said no. So he pulled out his wallet and handed me 5 20s, a gesture unfamiliar at our house. Then he drove me to the Highway 35 on-ramp and explained, problematic situations have a tendency to be forgotten when the dumbass who started them stays far away. Then he smiled and tossed me my duffel. As the man on the radio announced, we were expecting the coldest January of the decade. On the day of my exodus, rides were few and far between. I began to get discouraged. I wondered if I'd make it out of Minnesota by nightfall. My mother's second husband explained hitchhiking maintained absolute rules. Rule number 1 was important. If I wanted to have success, I needed to smell better than the drivers at all times. Rule number 2 stated, keep your hair short. It should never touch your ears or collar. I had a mullet. When I eventually crossed the state line, I was frozen and decided to trade vanity for acceptance. As I walked up to the barber shop in Dubuque, they said they were closing up. One of the barbers looked at my duffel. Then he looked at me and asked where I was heading. I told him I didn't know. But I didn't want to arrive there looking like this. And for the first time since getting myself into trouble, I felt ashamed. I gulped. My eyes got watery, and the old buck smiled and sat me in his chair and gave me my first crew cut since 4th grade. They appeared to be regulars sitting at banquet tables in the back. The women wore plastic rain scarves, most of which were floral. The men, ball caps, advertising tractors or battleships they served on. While the women chirped and the men mumbled, the waitress saw me and my duffel leaning against the counter and motioned for me to join them. Before she took my order, she looked at my duffel and asked where I was headed. I answered, Texas. The room became silent until I asked if something was wrong with Texas. The waitress shook her head no, but reminded me I'd have to pass through Oklahoma, causing them to place their hands on me and pray for my safety. It wasn't one or some. Every face recoiled the moment I entered Wichita. My chilly reception was connected to a wardrobe mishap. My left foot sported a size 15 army boot. My right foot was wrapped in burlap, tied snug with a cord. Money was tight. I tried to purchase a single replacement boot. Shoe guy answered no. So I ended up buying both boots. I ended up spending half my bankroll. Later that afternoon, I sat in a parking lot reading my Bible, reading John chapter 12, where Christ decides to enter Jerusalem on the back of an ass, hoping people would consider him humble. It's not often I correct a Messiah, but I'm pretty sure he'd be more humble if he entered Jerusalem with a foot wrapped in burlap, tied snug with a cord. I rang the bell. The door was answered. Smiles all around. Those who were home called those who weren't during dinner. I was asked why I had come. I explained I was failing life. I explained I was in search of an answer. I explained I was pretty sure I could find that answer in Texas. Because in Texas, I was loved. 3, 2, 1. I considered those schoolmates, first grade, second grade. I imagined most of them went off to college or were working for their parents. Butchers, bakers, casket makers, grasping legacies, weekends off. I was happy for them, while lying in shrubs, doing my best to avoid getting raped or murdered. Those schoolmates, they had a jump on me. But something told me, and I believed it, if I could just stay alive, make it through tonight, I might stand a chance of having a good run.